So this video is a quick run through about layers within Vizrt Artist and how you can manage these layers. So basically, if you're not familiar with the layers within Vizrt Artist, what we're talking about are three layers. There's a front layer, there's a middle layer, and a back layer within any Vizrt Artist or engine. So we could have three graphics on screen at one time. We could have a front layer up, we could have a middle layer up, and a back layer up at the same time. Now, it's important to note that transition logic, you can have multiple layers on the screen at the same time. So with transition logic, you're no longer worried about only three layers. You could have multiple layers. But this video is not about transition logic. It's really about your front, middle, and back layers and how to use them and how to manage them. So what we're going to do is dive in here, and I have set up a little project folder here called layers, and I have a couple of things within this folder. I have a blank scene here called all. And I also have a full screen, a lower third, and an OTS. So we're going to use these scenes to kind of manage and explain our layers here. Now I have my all scene open, and just a quick hint down at the very bottom here, it tells you what scenes you have open right next to the save as and close button. So if you hover over that, it tells you what scene is open. So I'm going to go ahead and open this little L button, the layer manager button, which is found beneath the trash can and or your camera buttons. So once I open this little layer manager here, you see it exposes our front layer, a middle layer, and a back layer. Now, since I opened up my all scene, it automatically loads it into the middle layer. So that's why this one has this little icon here. It says S, which stands for scene. It tells you the scene. And this little icon here tells you that it's actually open. Now, with these layers, we can actually drag things within here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to replace my main or my middle layer here with my OTS. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this down into here. And you can see when I did that it actually opened up the scene here. So I can now click on my containers and the scene is actually open. I didn't have to come up here and double click it to actually open the scene. Okay, so we have our OTS. We hit play and it plays that graphic. Now I'm going to take my full screen scene and I'm going to drag this into the back layer. We do that, you can see that it keeps our original scene open, our middle layer or main layer, our OTS scene, but it only throws this full screen scene in the background and nothing happens. And even when we hit play, it's still only playing the OTS. Now, I had set this background scene up actually with an action keyframe, so that's what's triggering it when we hit play. Now also, besides this back layer, I can drag another layer into the front, and I'm going to use this one to drop my L3 or my lower third graphic into there. So now we have three layers basically stacked on top of one another. So you notice that we set this up as a design so that none of them crisscross or overlap each other. They're kind of set up as separate independent graphics. So it's one way that we can control our multiple layers within Vizrt Artist. Now, like I said, one of the problems is that if we use it this way with these three layers, we have limited control as to what we can hit play here and trigger events. So in that case, what we need to do is actually make some action keyframes. And I'm going to go into the stage here. And like I said, I had previous set up an action keyframe to start our background layer. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete these for a second, and we'll start from scratch and show you how we did that. So I'm just going to drag these two things to the trash here, and let's say, okay, we'll start within here. I have a director here called default. Now I want my full screen background to play when we hit this trigger button, or I want it to play when this timeline bar reaches a certain point. So what we can do, come over here, we're going to add an action keyframe. I'm going to click on the little plus A button. We'll just give it a name, something like full screen or FS. Okay, so here's where I'm going to add my action keyframe, and I can just place my timeline bar wherever I want it, and I'm going to hit the little add keyframe here. Now, to control this background layer, I need to write a series of action keyframes. Two things that I want to do is stop this full page animation and start it. So we can write a keyframe to do that. And to do that, I'm just going to come into this little window here and start by saying renderer. And renderer can actually be replaced with this scene sometimes. So this underscore scene and renderer are interchangeable when you're writing action keyframes. So I'm going to say back layer, back underscore layer, which will identify our back layer. And I'm going to say stage, and we also need to identify the name of our director. which is default, and anytime you do any type of identification of your director, you need a $sign in front of that. Now we just need to type the director name, which is default. And first thing I want to do is hit stop. So when we come here and we hit play, it hits that action keyframes and it stops that background. Now I actually wanted to continue again, so what we need to do is add another keyframe, and I'll go ahead and hit add keyframe. And again, what I can do is just start by typing renderer, spelling counts again, so make sure everything is spelled right, and we're going to say back_layer again to identify our back layer. And we're going to say stage, again the name of our director, which is default, and this time instead of stop we wanted to continue. So two things should happen here when we hit play. On our timeline bar, it's going to first stop the animation, and then when it reaches the second action keyframe here, it's going to continue that animation. So it's one way that you can kind of add some control to this. And if we needed to do this for the lower third too, now we don't have a whole lot of animation on the lower third, but we can add a keyframe for that too, or an action keyframe to get that started. So one way to manage scenes here. Maybe a little bit more in depth than you needed with the whole action keyframes, but the information is there if you need it. Now, one other thing that we want to show you here is another way to actually control your layers. So I'm going to go ahead and close out this scene completely, and I'm going to go ahead and open up my lower third scene. Even though I open up my lower third scenes, we still have our layer manager open, and all these things are over here. So our lower third got replaced in our main scene here. Still up in our other front scene. So two things you can do to get rid of it. You could just turn that inactive, or if you want to drag it to the trash can, you can do that there. Same thing with the full screen. I'm going to drag that to the trash can to get rid of it. We're only left with our middle layer, our main layer, which is our lower third. Now, not the prettiest thing in the world, this lower third, but for functionality wise, one thing that I want to show you how to use some control objects to actually manage your layers. So I'm going to go into my built-ins here, into my control plugins here. Let's resize our window a little bit. First thing I want to do is add a control text. So I'm just going to go ahead and drag that down here. Notice when we did that, it automatically added the object control up here. If I wanted to, I could add a control image, maybe to swap out our logo if we wanted to do that too. So I have our little image here. If I want to drag that down, swap it out, and remember I would just need to change this field identifier since it is our second control plugin. But the main thing in using these control plugins is that whenever we drag one down, it adds this control object, and if you click on your control object, what you have is your Viz layers. So kind of just like our layer manager over here, we can control which layer this lower third is going to be output to. Right now we have it set to middle. If we wanted it to always be on the front layer, we could just set that on the front layer. If we always wanted it to be on the back layer, you could set it on the back layer. Using this actually gives you the ability then to switch it in Trio. So if we jump over to Trio real quick, we can show you what that looks like, and I'll come into Trio, and I imported my lower third here, and you can see that we have this little layer manager here. And if you need to bring this up, or if you don't see this on your Trio, you can right click in this gray area here and you can just check your little layer. This actually brings up the ability to swap out your layer. You can see here that it says main. So if we needed to swap this to the front layer or the back layer, you just click in this area and it will give us the drop down to do that. And then you could hit play and it outputs it to that particular layer. So I hope that helps explain a little bit about the layers here. And like I said, if you need the ability to use more than 3 layers, then transition logic is certainly an option for you. And if you need to know more about transition logic, then certainly look up the tutorials on this website.